We'll give folks just one more minute to populate in the room and we'll get started. Thank you for being with us today.
Recording in progress.
A few housekeeping notes before we get started. If you experience any issues with your audio, please check your Zoom and computer settings. Exiting and re-entering the Zoom link can also resolve issues. We'll address as many questions as possible today during a Q&A session at the end of the program, but please feel free to submit your questions throughout today's program through the Q&A function in Zoom. Now I'll turn it over to CFP Board CEO Kevin Keller.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us here today for a discussion of the proposed changes to the competency standards for CFP certification. CFP certification over time has become the standard for competent and ethical financial planning. Because the marks are so meaningful to certificants, to firms, and perhaps most importantly to consumers, CFP Board is committed to ensuring that the requirements for CFP certification remain valid, reliable, legally defensible, but perhaps most importantly, relevant. In 2023, we launched an initiative to review and evaluate the requirements for CFP certification, or what we call the competency standards. I'm here today with CFP Board's Chief Operating Officer, Dane Snowden, to tell you more about the initiative, including proposed changes to the standards. Today, we'll share background and context for the recommendations. We'll walk through each of the proposed changes, and we'll take some time to answer your questions. In 2023, CFP Board established a Competency Standards Commission to conduct a comprehensive review of CFP Board's competency standards for certification. These include 3 of the 4 E's as we know them: education, experience, and examination. We also include continuing education requirements. The commission was a select group of 15 volunteers. It included 12 CFP professionals, individuals from financial services firms of all business models, educators, certification and credentialing professionals, and others. We are grateful to the Commission for their dedication, their expertise, and thoughtful, and I might add, Dane, thorough review of the standards. I'd like to give a special shout out and recognition to the chair of the Commission, Jack Brode. Jack is a former chair of CFP Board, and we appreciate his leadership. So thank you, Jack. This was the first time that CFP Board has taken a holistic review of our competency standards. In the past, many of you who've been certified for a while know that we've from time to time taken a more piecemeal approach. We added the college degree requirement way back in 2007. We added the apprenticeship option. We added the capstone course requirement, but we've never looked at all of the competency standards at one time. The rationale for this review stems from our commitment to advancing the profession and fostering public trust. We do this by setting, administering, and upholding rigorous standards for CFP certification. So our regular evaluation of the competency standards reflects our commitment to leadership, innovation, and the American public. The proposed recommendations under consideration aim to ensure that the competency standards are modern, relevant, and practical for the evolving financial planning profession. Dane, you were in the room for many of these meetings. Why don't you walk us through the commission's process?
Thank you, Kevin, and I want to thank you all for being with us today. Over 18 months, the commission held more than 30 meetings and worked diligently to undertake the first comprehensive assessment and re-examination of the entire set of competency standards within a single cohesive process. The commission, they were guided by key principles to shape its discussions, their very passionate debates, and recommendations to the board. These principles emphasize that CFP certification must demonstrate value and relevance, not just to those who earn and pursue it, but also for the benefit of the public. The competency standards earn and warrant public trust, while also enhancing the recognition and respect for the financial planning profession. The commission heard from 12 experts who shared their experience in certification trends and best practices. The standards are designed to reflect modern credentialing practices and should align with the leading organizations and established professions. They must also, I should add, meet the accreditation requirements of the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, or NCCA. The guiding principles emphasize that CFP professionals are firmly committed to acting as fiduciaries, always prioritizing their clients' best interests. The guiding principles endorsed by the Board of Directors reaffirm that CFP Board certification standards should reflect the pinnacle of excellence, on par with the most revered professional bodies and established professions. The Board of Directors carefully evaluated the Commission's recommendations. They recognize that changes to the competency standard can significantly shape the future of the profession. On December 17th of last year, the Board of Directors announced the proposed revised competency standards for public comment, and in doing so, launched a transparent process for all to participate. Input from a broad range of voices provides crucial context as the board considers their next steps in the process. CFP Board is actively seeking input on the proposed changes from practitioners, candidates, firms, and the public. The QR code on your screen will take you directly to the public comment page. I'm happy to report that so far we have received over 1,100 comments and growing. The comment period is open through February 28th. The current comment period focuses on areas where additional feedback is needed, and the Board of Directors will review public comments and relevant data, carefully evaluating the issues throughout 2025. And as a reminder, that we are taking your questions today, so submit them anytime during the presentation during the Q&A feature on Zoom. Now let's dig in some of the recommendations. The first recommendation focuses on the accelerated path in our education standard. Currently, candidates who hold specific certifications or degrees can meet the coursework requirement. This includes individuals with designations such as CPA, CFA, COU, CHFC, International CFP, licensed attorneys, PhD holders in financial planning, finance, or economics, and those with a Doctor of Business Administration. The proposed change is to add CIMA, or Certified Investment Management Analyst, certification to the list of approved accelerated path designations. It's important to note that the capstone course will be required for everyone if this proposal goes forward. The second recommendation proposes to update the standard pathway in our experience standard. Currently, candidates on the standard pathway need 3 years of experience or 6,000 hours to qualify. This involves meeting a two-part requirement. Part 1, candidates must have experience in the financial planning process, which must include qualifying experience in at least one of the 7 financial planning process steps. Part 2, candidates must complete qualifying experience activities such as personally engaging with clients or completing an approved internship or externship. For the apprenticeship pathway, candidates need 4,000 hours of experience and must meet 3 requirements. Part 1, similar to the other, is experience in the financial planning process involving at least one of the 7 financial planning process steps. Part 2, accumulate all 4,000 hours through direct client engagement. In Part 3, ensure all 4,000 hours are completed under the direct supervision of a CFP professional. This requires verification and attestation by the CFP Board. The proposed change out for public comment is to update the standard pathway by increasing the requirement from 1 to at least 3 of the financial planning steps. So the aim here is to have candidates gain more experience through more steps. The next recommendation for the experience standard focuses on how candidates fulfill the 6,000 hour requirement. Currently, candidates earn experience at a rate of 40 hours per week. The proposed change would allow candidates in the standard pathway to count up to 500 hours of pro bono experience for their 6,000 hour requirement. This change recognizes the value of pro bono work in meeting the experience standard. The final recommendation for the experience standard examines when candidates need to complete their experience. Right now, candidates must finish their experience within 10 years before or 5 years after passing the exam. If they don't meet that timeline, they must request a 3-year extension or they lose their hours and must start all over. The new recommendation would make things more flexible by creating a look-back window, letting candidates count experience completed up to 15 years before applying for certification. The commission felt this was important for former military and women re-entering the workforce.
And Dane, it was a request. We got a request for exception. It was one that we've been somewhat flexible on if there's a reason in the past, was it not?
Exactly. We've been very flexible on this one, so it makes sense to try to modernize this one as we go forward. The 5th proposed recommendation focuses on clarifying language in our examination standard. The commission felt the current language describing the competency standard wasn't quite clear enough. As noted in the bolded language on the slide, the recommendation emphasizes that competency to practice independently is predicated on completing the requirement of what we call the 4 E's: education, exam, experience, and ethics. The next recommendation focuses on our continuing education requirements. Currently, CFP professionals must complete 30 hours of CE every 2 years to maintain their certification. The proposed change would increase this requirement by 10 hours, raising it to 40 hours per 2-year cycle. The commission noted that other established professions require 40 or more CE hours every 2 years. For example, the National Association of Personal Financial Planners requires 60 hours over 2 years. CPAs require 120 CE hours over 3 years, and Society for Human Resource Management requires 60 hours over 3 years. The 7th recommendation builds upon the previous proposal to increase CE hours from 30 to 40. If the proposed increase is implemented, this recommendation would allow for CFP professionals to carry over up to 10 hours of their CE credits to the next 2-year cycle. The commission felt that adding carryover will provide more flexibility and make the CE process more manageable for CFP professionals.
And Dane, this is one we hear a lot when we're out. People, ask about this. So it's one I'm pleased that the commission looked at. I think administratively for us to administer internally will take some time for us to think about if the board ultimately adds this, but it's one that, I understand the background.
Yeah, it's very helpful. The commission really went back and forth and talked about this particular one, and they really felt that they wanted to have something a little more manageable for CFP professionals, but also emphasizing the importance of CE. in our profession. The next recommendation aims to ensure that CFP professionals engage in CE that is both current and relevant. The proposed change would allow CFP Board, with approval from the Board of Directors, to require specific CE courses on important emerging topics and regulatory updates. The Commission is recommending CE requirements on broad topics areas that include, for example, new tax laws, the Secure Act, artificial intelligence, and updates from the Department of Labor, SEC, and FINRA. Key areas that the board of directors feel will directly impact the profession.
Dane, as the board discussed this option, this is not something that I think that we envision would happen very frequently. It would be special where there's significant changes. The most recent one that I felt might be relevant here is the Secure Act 2.0. There were so many changes that impact financial advice, retirement, and the required minimum distributions, all the various areas that the Secure Act touched, that the commission and subsequently the board as well felt that it might be important for advisors to be up to date and be relevant.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that the key was current and relevant, and I think the board recognized, as well as the commission, that they didn't want to whipsaw. They wanted to make sure that this was relevant and this is something that was impactful enough that it affected the profession. So this is an option that should be out there for CFP Board to update when needed. The ninth recommendation seeks to expand the types of CE that CFP professionals can complete to meet their certification requirements. This recommendation is made alongside the proposed increase in the required CE hours to 40 hours every 2 years. The proposed change will allow up to 10 hours of CE to be earned through pro bono service at a 3-to-1 ratio. In this case, 3 hours of pro bono service would count as 1 hour toward the CE requirement if the requirement is increased to 40 hours. Commission also suggests that CFP professionals participate in a pro bono education course specific to the type of activity they are engaged in. This recommendation will be implemented on a trial basis through a partnering organization, which will provide opportunity to leverage pro bono education and referral. Finally, the Board of Directors has posed an additional question for public comment regarding activities that could fulfill part of the CE requirements through community service. Specifically, they are seeking input on what activities, such as pro bono work, teaching, mentoring, or other service-based contributions, will be appropriate for fulfilling these CE requirements. Additionally, they're asking for feedback on what should be the maximum number of service-related CE hours permitted. So, Kevin, these are all the recommendations out for public comment. And I should note that the comment instrument, we have left an open-ended question to gather feedback and input on anything not raised by the board or the commission. Following the close of the public comment period on February 28th, CFP Board will review all submissions and post them on our website in the spring. The Board of Directors will incorporate public feedback into their deliberations as they evaluate the proposed changes, with a final decision anticipated by the end of 2025. And finally, Kevin, I also want to express my gratitude to the Competency Standards Commission for their dedication and hard work over the past 2 years. We could not have accomplished this work without their exceptional leadership and service, and the volunteers are very critical to this process. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, just a process item. The commission met numerous times. There were subcommittees for each of the various standards for education, experience, exam, continuing education. I sat in a couple times on various meetings. There was, let me assure you, rigorous debate.
There was a lot of passion in the room.
There was no shortage of passion. So I want to add my thanks to you, Dane, and also to the commission. Enhancing the rigor, the clarity, and the relevance of our competency standards is critical to the sustainability, recognition, and respect of the financial planning profession. CFP professionals also tell us that they think it should be a top priority for CFP board. So we're committed to that important work. We've covered a lot of ground. We had some questions come in advance, and we have some that have popped up here. So we're going to go through these as quickly as we can and try to get to as many of them as we can. But the first one, Dane, no surprise, Adam, went right for the big elephant in the room, because as you and I were out on the road talking to CFP certificates, appearing at certificate connections, at the FPA meetings, at NAPFA, the question about the college degree requirements top of mind. Adam writes, is there any plan to eliminate the 4-year college degree requirement? And he references, especially with 20 years of experience as a financial advisor. So why don't we just take that one right off the top?
Sure. Thank you, Adam, for your question. And as Kevin alluded to, we've gotten a lot of feedback on this particular issue everywhere we go, anywhere we go, in every forum that we're in. The board put out what they wanted to get more public comment on. They have received a great amount of comment just in their normal work from CFP professionals, from candidates, from registered program directors on the college degree requirement. And it's been both keep it, it's been others have said eliminate it. Right now, what we've done for the comment instrument is that we're allowing individuals to weigh in on that particular issue if they want to add something to that point. We've received some comments both for and against it already. And we would encourage you to utilize the open-ended question in the comment instrument to add your feedback. A decision has not been made on that either way. The board has put out the 10 or so public comments, questions that they wanted to get more feedback on. They've gotten a lot of feedback on this, and I imagine that will still be debated within the boardroom.
Great. Lamont writes to us, what has the board seen that these changes will address or correct? It's kind of I think that's kind of what's the why behind this effort. And so why don't I take a start from that, and then I'll turn it over to you. This really wasn't a prescriptive process, in that the review wasn't an effort to correct any kind of recurring problem. As CFP Board is the body that sets, administers, and upholds CFP certification. And we feel it's an important responsibility to make sure that our certification requirements, remain relevant. I just looked on the reader board in our office, 103,000 plus CFP professionals. All of you who have attained and maintain your certification have an interest in making sure that we continue to be a relevant certification, and that we not lower the standards. So ultimately, it's about administering standards that warrant public trust and maintain and enhance the value of CFP certification. What would you add, Dane?
Yeah, I would harken back to what you said, Kevin. It's all about being current and relevant. And the commission itself looked at their task as looking at where we are today, but also where we want to be tomorrow. We want to make sure the profession itself evolves as everything else evolves in our society. So the goal behind this was not necessarily to fix things, but to make sure that we're moving along a path that has us advancing along with the profession.
April has a question here in the queue. I'd remind you, if you have questions, use the Q&A feature from Zoom. She says, the proposed standard change to increase the look back to 15 years, it was mentioned that we've been flexible on one-off cases. How clear is it to candidates that they can reach out on a case-by-case basis on this standard? Let me just take a shot at that. Dane, you run this is in your shop. But for everybody, sometimes I think there might be a narrative out there that CFP Board is in the business of keeping people from becoming certified. No, we want people to become certified. So if you have a question, or, we're not going to make, it can't be 30-year experience, but if there's a, we're willing to, there are, business rules, if there's a question or if it's close, and you want to have a conversation, the answer may be no, it might be something. The basic requirements for certification, we don't vary. You have to complete a CFP board registered program or one of the other pathways. You have to take and pass the exam. But some of the requirements, give us a call and have a conversation, because if we can help you across the line, we want to do that.
Yeah, I would add that our ultimate goal is to get more people to become certified. And so every week I review policy exceptions that come in. So I think, April, to your question, yes, people are aware of that. They are taking advantage of it. And we understand sometimes life gets in the way. And so we want to make sure that we can understand that, review that, make sure that it's something that's reasonable. And when we can, we will approve it. If we can't, we'll help guide you to how we get you to the place where you need to you can get certified.
Great. Next question. Paul asks, has CFP board considered ways to reduce the cost associated with CE requirements, both on the specific topics and the proposed 10-hour additional requirements, perhaps providing some CE at minimal cost? Why don't you go ahead and take that, Dave?
Well, the commission didn't discuss the cost of CE, and because that was outside of their scope and their role, they were focused solely on what should the competency standards be. CE costs are determined by the CE sponsors who deliver the programs, not by CFP board. Regarding potential recommendations to lower CE costs, there are no specific discussions underway at this point by the board, but I will take that under consideration as you based on your question. So thank you very much for that.
Question from Brian, real quick. If adopted, when would this, it's basically asking when would the standard pathway changes go into effect? But let's just, if you would, any of these, if they're adopted, how will it be communicated and when will they take effect?
So I said earlier that the board will take all the information they're gathering right now from public comments, their deliberations. That will take the whole course of 2025. Once a decision is made on what the updates are to all the competency standards, we will have a timeline for each, because they will be on different schedules based on if we have to upgrade our technology here at CFP board, if we have to have a communication piece to the registered programs in schools. So all of that will come into effect. So nothing will take place in 2025. But we will anticipate in 2026, we'll roll out different parts of the standards could change and be on a different timeline.
Well, Carrie had a number of questions. So we might break these up, but I'll give you the first one. She asked, why is it 40 hours of CE proposed? How much incremental revenue will CFP board get? So I haven't thought about that, but why don't you take that and I'll answer the specifics on the revenue.
Sure. Thank you, Carrie, for your questions. Many of the well-established professions that the commission reviewed require 40 or more CE hours every 2 years. And I mentioned earlier that everything from the National Association of Personal Financial Planners, the CPAs, to the Society for Human Resource Managers, they all have higher standards than we currently have. And so I think the commission was looking at that. How do they continue to be relevant and on par with peer organizations as well? And although continuing legal education credits vary by state, many align with CFP board's current requirement for 30 hours every 2 years. Here, it's important, I would add that it's important to note that CFP board doesn't sell CE, with the exception of our annual Connections Conference, which is our second one. So we just started doing that, but that's the only time that we sell CE.
And, as it relates to how much additional revenue, I think it's less than or about 1% of our total revenue increase. So that wasn't the driver at all. let's go to the inbox here. We have a question, which I want to use this as kind of a jumping off point. Jeff asks, would service as a trustee on a private not-for-profit foundation qualify as CE? I'm not going to answer the specific question, but we should talk about when people have questions, do things qualify for CE? What should they do? Because and let's tell Jeff how he can get an answer to that.
Sure. Anytime you have a question on that, you can contact CFP Board through our contact center, and that we'll see if we can answer the question immediately. If not, our CE specialist will get on the phone with you and work through your particular situation and ensure that we can either tell you yes or no and guide you through the process.
Great. And Kia, who leads that function for us, does she and we've got a whole team of people that support that effort. Another question from Carrie. How have you thanks, Carrie. Have you considered improving the quality of current CE? Right. And so how do you evaluate? So
Carrie, this is a question that we hear frequently as well. And CFP Board carefully evaluates CE sponsors programming to ensure it aligns with our principal knowledge topics. And our aim is to have the most relevant content for our professionals. Now, the commission spent quite a bit of time discussing the quality of CE offerings. And I would tell you there was a vigorous debate in the room about the offerings. However, they found that defining what quality means can be quite subjective and it's tricky to set a clear, universally accepted standard. We CFP Board, are also open to feedback and appreciate the ongoing conversation on how we improve it. So if you have thoughts, you can reach out to us directly as well.
One more from Carrie. What is the budget to implement the proposed changes for CE? I think we already answered that, but if we increase the requirement by essentially 1/3 every 2 years, that's about 17.5% every year. So it'll be more review. We expect there could be more CE programs. So.
Yeah. And Carrie, the exact details have not been figured out, and we'll do all that once the board makes a decision. But as we see this, we look to more additional staff hours, possibly having to hire more staff. We'll have to look at our technology upgrades to see if that's needed as well. So all of that type of evaluation will go on once we have a final approved list from the board.
And candidly, the technology piece is something that I hear about regularly,
right,
Dane, when I'm on the road, that it's a bit clunky to submit CE. So for the CE providers who are listening, it's on our IT list. We have some deferred IT maintenance that we need to do, and some technical debt, and we know that that's one that needs attention. Let's see. Danielle writes to us on the Q&A feature. So if you have questions, please feel free to add those. So for those starting from 0, experience may be a remarkable impediment. What would the next chapters, other than taking the classes, for example, for a career changer? Is it a realistic expectation to become certified? Basically, what are the options? So we should talk about the options. Obviously, yes, 6,000 hours is a lot. And yet putting CFP after your name is a signal to the public, that an assurance, if you will, that the person has met our standards. But we have different ways in addition to the traditional experience standard to achieve those. Do you want to talk about those?
Well, I think let's go back a step on why we even have the experience requirement. I mean, one of the things we want to make sure is when you become certified, that you're ready to practice after you've met all of our standards. And so that's one of the reasons why we have this, and we have such fidelity to ensuring that our candidates all get the experience that they need. And there there are many ways to get the experience, and I think it's what we have here again. We would encourage you to reach out to us, and we can help you and or a register program. We can help you work through some ideas of how you can get that more experience. But it's critical that you have that experience so that you can practice independently when you become a CFP.
Somebody named first initial P, I won't give the last name, gives us a comment. She or he writes, "Do not water down or eliminate the need for a college degree as requirements to obtain CFP, exclamation point. You need a college degree to become a medical doctor, a lawyer, a CPA, I believe all professions the CFP board is, wants to be compared to. So I would encourage P, whoever P is, Paul or Pauline, if we have a feature on the instrument to provide feedback, please make that point there. There will be others, I assume, who believe that the college degree requirement maybe should go by the wayside, who will be opining. So we're going to encourage P to put a comment there.
And Kevin, I would add to that, it's interesting. I saw the exclamation points in P's comment. We equally get the same on the opposite side with the same amount of exclamation points as well on why you should actually change it. And there's a third option that we've heard as well, and that is, do you do something for those who have been in the profession over a certain period of time that don't have a college degree? Again, I would echo what you said. Go into the comment instrument and add thoughts to us so that the board can see what you're actually what your points are.
Humphrey has the same point. Humphrey said, "I suggest that the college degree should not be eliminated. People should rise up and meet." Look, it's a opinion that people share passionately on both sides. There are good reasons to maintain it. There could be good reasons to maybe do away with it. So,
and the commission itself, to be fair to them, there was a lot of passion on this issue in that room, and there were multiple meetings, multiple conversations talking about this issue. And so there's a lot of passion on this issue, and we recognize that, and that's why we want to hear more feedback.
And I presume Humphrey's already certified. So, let's keep the standards high. So Humphrey, thank you for your comment. I'm also wondering how our current standards measure up to other highly respected professions, and if we are at a higher or lower standard, thinking of CPAs, lawyers. Again, this is from April.
No, the commission looked at all the professions. We benchmarked against them, and some of the areas where those professions, the one you mentioned, were ahead of us, were on CE. And that's primarily where it was. Our standards and certification process, our exam, all of those features that we have are on par. But I think where we saw there was some level opportunity for us to increase was in their CE portion offerings that we had in terms of our requirement.
Great. Dane, I'll give this one to you. Montgomery asks, which areas of the CE credit will be mandatory based on the proposed changes?
Montgomery, if you look at the recommendation 8 that I referred to, that would allow CFP Board to require CE on specific topics whenever new laws or taxes or regulations affect the profession. The aim, Montgomery, is to help everyone remain up to date with any major changes that affect the financial planning, that affect their clients. Another proposed change would not require CE in a specific area, but instead would allow certificates to earn up to 10 CE hours through pro bono service. So the idea here is that for every 3 hours of pro bono work, you earn 1 hour of CE, and that's recommendation 9 if you want to go back to what's in our comment instrument.
And Dane, we should also, I've seen a couple of comments about the cost to get CE, but there are a number of ways to get free CE, which most of the trade magazines have quizzes included to get to CE. So there are a number of ways other than live conferences or other expensive.
Exactly. And if you actually go on our website and search for CE options, you'll see we have actually different categories of what you might be looking for that will help you, help guide you to what CE you can take, that will help facilitate your requirement.
Question from, this is kind of a general question. Dane, I'm going to give it to you from, that has come in from Danielle again. What is the best form of communication to reach out for guidance? So these folks are all part of your team. How should we give guidance to Danielle when she needs information?
So the first place you can start is contacting us either through our contact center or sending us an email. And if you go online, all that information is available there for you. We read those. We have a whole team here that they do nothing but review the emails or answer the phone, answer the questions, or get back to you with the answer that you're asking. We encourage that. We want that. We're also using the data that you have when we know that there, for example, if there are 3 or 4 people or 5 or 10 people calling in for the same thing, we also take that and say, how do we make sure we put that information more visible on our website so that we can eliminate you having to reach out to us. But I would say recommend you look at our website, but reaching out to us directly either through our contact center or through any of our email channels, no matter if it's education, CE, or experience that you have a question on.
Ray asks, will this webinar be available for replay? I wasn't able to log on early enough to hear everything. And the answer, Ray, is yes. We'll have it up by Monday at the latest, maybe sooner. So thank you for that. Question from Marilyn. Is there any chance that the enhanced experience hours for completing the externship will apply to years prior to 2024?
I appreciate the question, Marilyn. Right now, there's not a plan to make the experience hours for the externship retroactive. But we understand where you're coming from, but that is not a part of the plan to date.
William asks a question that is relevant, I think, for the profession at large, and admits it's slightly off topic, but you know, we've got time, so we'll take that, spend a little time. Is the board, CFP board, working with the individual states and the SEC to make a CFP a license rather than a certification? So, you know, our board, we've talked about this. I've been here now almost 18 years. It's been a relevant topic of discussion for most of the time that I've been here. And candidly, CFP board's position on this has evolved. There was a time when we supported regulation of financial planning and making CFP. I'd love it if in order to call yourself a financial planner, you had to be a CFP certificate. However, the board has re-evaluated its position, and in 2018 took a position that it would not support state regulation of financial planners. In fact, would oppose it if it were to come up, because for a couple of reasons, but just briefly, in Canada, they've done a similar protection of the term financial planner. There are now 5 different certifications that allow you to call yourself a financial planner in Canada. And with the other than CFP, all of the others are a lower standard. And so, as our friends in Canada say, it's become a race to the bottom.
I think, Kevin, I would add to that, prior to joining CFP board, I'd spent some time being a lobbyist in the federal and state side, and you have to be careful what you ask for. You can have a perfect law in one state, but another state may do it completely different. And then you have this patchwork quilt of all these different rules that makes it very, very difficult to you to practice your profession.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues that with the Canadian provinces they're dealing with as well. Brian asked if the proposed changes were adopted, when would they go into effect? I think we've answered that before. I'll let you answer it again, though. Also, would there be an exception for prospective candidates already enrolled in a CFP program who would be impacted by the proposed changes?
So we don't see any impact on the registered programs or their curriculum right now. So I think that's the that concern should be alleviated. As I mentioned a moment ago, the board is going to use all of 2025 to evaluate all of this. They're going to take their time. They're going to be thorough. They're going to be diligent in what they decide, and they're going to debate. And so we don't expect final decisions or final implementation of any of the decisions until 2026.
Lucas asks, did CFP Board consider firm size and how different sized firms may be impacted when looking at the standards proposed changes?
As a rule, we are agnostic on firm size when we look at all of these different proposals. The commission was. The goal was to look at what do we need out of the professional, and that is the target that they were striving for, to make sure that the CFP professional is ready to practice to benefit the public. And so the firm size and type, that was not a part of their scope. It was more, how do we elevate and focus on the future for our standards for this profession?
Lots of college degree folks writing in about the college degree. We've talked a fair amount about that already. So again, if you feel strongly either that the degree should be required or that the degree is unnecessary, I would encourage you to answer that final question on the instrument for feedback and let us know how you feel. There are strong sides. Did you see something?
Well, I see Scott made a point of saying many people do not have the ability to rise up and obtain a degree. Lots of great planners with many years of experience that do not have or need a degree. So, and again, Scott, you and others are showing the debate that's going on right now that the board is aware of course, and we would again encourage you to add comments in our public comment instrument.
Brian asks if these proposed change. Oops, I already read that one. Sorry about that. A question, Dane. One of the issues that we've dealt with is how CFP Board might work closer with the state securities administrators. It's the North American Securities Administrators Association. We collectively usually refer to them as the state securities administrators, to allow CFP certification, or at least the CE, to count toward their education.
Well, it's a credentialing body, CFP Board. We are committed to maintaining high standards for CE while meeting all the regulatory obligations. And while we don't typically sponsor CE content ourselves, we have partnered with over 1,000 approved CE sponsors who offer pre-approved courses that meet our CE requirements. So many of these sponsors also offer courses that fulfill the state security administrators' CE requirements for investment advisor representatives. So there's actually a fair amount of overlap between State Security Commission's approved provider list and ours, which is good. Because of this, CFP professionals often have flexibility to choose courses that meet both the CFP Board and the State Security Administrator CE requirements, aside from the specific ethics requirements that we have. While we don't currently have a formal partnership with the State Security Administrators to integrate CE credits, we're always looking for ways to make the process smoother and more streamlined across the different professional designations. So that is our goal, and we strive to do that every day.
Well, William notes that public service, I assume he means pro bono, should be an option, not a requirement, as a way to earn CE. And there's nothing in this that we say that you have to do pro bono work, correct?
Correct. And what just the opposite, they're saying if you choose to do pro bono work, should you be given credit for that work in your CE hours?
We're coming here to the end. Again, let me just scroll down here and see if there's anything else. Will this webinar be posted? Yes, it will be posted by Monday. How would CFP Board pro bono hours be verified or documented? That's to be determined. the board wanted the feedback right from the public, and then we will be working on an impact statement for CFP Board. How will this impact CFP Board before the Board of Directors makes any decision?
And also, how will we implement this? And there's an earlier question about the timeline on when all of this will go into effect. This is the reason why some of this may be, some of these recommendations or approved recommendations might be on different timelines, because something like that, we may have to update our technology. And as Kevin alluded to, we have some technology debt we have to work through. But we're going to do that. And so it all depends on the timing of when we can go through all the necessary steps to figure out what has to get done.
I'm going to take this one final question or comment from Gary. Can you elaborate on the military proposed addition? There was nothing specific to the military, would you?
No, the idea of a look back was a military individual was used as an example, as was someone returning to the workforce, i.e. a mom who's returning to the workforce. The thought is that if someone is coming into the profession, allowing them more time to count that experience would be beneficial and more flexible for them than having the 10-year ahead and 5-year back process that we currently have.
Well, Dane, thank you. I mean, this has been a big project for CFP Board. We're going to let Stephen have the last word when he complimented us, saying this was a very insightful presentation and Q&A, so much appreciated. So thank you for the feedback.
Thanks, Stephen.
Not all have been quite as generous as Stephen, but we appreciate you all nonetheless. Dana, I'll turn it over to you for final thoughts, and then I'll close us out.
I just want to say thank you all for the work that you all are doing to advance the profession. And for the candidates who are listening, keep at it. It's worth it. It's a great profession. And we want to call you a CFP professional someday. And again, participate in the process and give us the comments that you have. You can answer all or one or two, but just give us your comments. We very much appreciate it.
The Board of Directors wants to hear.
Absolutely.
Yep. So you see a QR code on the screen right now. This is how you can go directly to the public comment page that you were just referencing. So there are specific questions for you to fill out here. I encourage you all to be part of this process. I thank you all for your commitment to upholding the high standards of CFP certification. There are over 100 people who work for CFP Board. We're all committed to it, but it's really day to day the work that financial planners do across the country, upholding the high standards and carrying the flag for CFP certification as the standard for financial planning. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll adjourn with that.